On today's episode, we are going to finish up this pond. I'm going to show you how we're putting in our intake-based skimmer. And we'll probably start setting a few rocks for this massive waterfall that's going to take up half of this hillside here. Hey everybody, it's Jack from Atlantis Water Gardens. Welcome back to part 2 here in Newton, New Jersey on this pond and massive waterfall project. If you haven't seen how we got to this point so far, click on the link right here for part 1. So this pond is about 18 feet across. It's going to be about 25 feet long, plus our intake-based skimmer. We got a lot of the rock work done on this side. We're building this mainly for the dogs that live in this home, as well as some rescue dogs that are going to be staying here. So Melissa wanted me to create some areas where the dogs can get down pretty easy, and that's what these stones are about here, stepping down to different levels. There'll be about like 6 inches of water here, about 12 inches of water there, and then we're going down to 2 foot in there before we finally reach our depth of 3 foot over there where Joe is standing. We've got a constructed wetland filter that's actually being built inside the pond. This is going to have about a foot of water on top of it. Again, great place for all the dogs to play. It's going to be a nice shallow spot for smaller dogs. And on the far end, we're doing our intake-based skimmer. So essentially any debris that comes into this pond will make its way over to this collection point. Right now we're carving this out. The soil here is terrible. There's a lot of shale in the ground. We're having to cut through and then add soil back and compact it so we can actually get our elevation that we need. In this intake-based skimmer, we're going to be putting 2 pump vaults as well as a layer of aqua blocks. The top of our blocks are going to be about 8 inches below water. That gives us enough room to create the skimming action, as well as when you go to clean this out, you'll have a skimmer net. You're not banging it off the bottom of the gravel with real shallow water. On all the horizontal shelves of this feature, we are putting stone dust. That's a bedding layer that's protecting our liner. About 2 inches of that stone dust goes on top of our compacted material. Then we're using rock pads. So this is a really heavy fabric. Let me get see on camera how thick that is. That's some thick stuff. That'll go down in 2 layers before our liner goes in, and then on top of the liner we'll put more of that fabric before we set in our rock work. This morning we're going to finish up that excavation, then get that layer of stone dust in there, followed by all our liner and fabric. Once we get that done, I'll show you guys how the aqua blocks and the pump vault go into our intake-based skimmer. This is what a prepared intake bay looks like. This whole area has been flattened out. This is going to be where our aqua blocks sit. We are 18 inches below water in this entire area. Now the reason we're 18 inches is because our aqua block is 10 inches high. That's going to leave us 8 inches of water on top of the blocks, which is exactly what we want. Off to the side, we've got our pump vaults. Now this is where our pumps will be housed that are going to be feeding our wetland filter and our waterfalls. These are recessed down approximately 8 inches below the block, because we want that block to come across here and sit right on top of this foot. Once the liner's in, we're going to fill this gap in with some cobbles that's going to let the water get into the grates on this foot. We want to make sure this is the same level as the top, and if we put the level here, it's perfect. It's in great shape. So now we can go ahead and put our fabric and liner in. We're going to install the pump vaults and the aqua blocks, and I'm going to show you how we actually make this area skim. So we've got our pump vaults installed along with our aqua blocks. Now this is essentially our intake-based skimmer. Right now we just did our rock work in front of this and closed this up. Water would be pulled in through the front of these blocks, and that's not what we want, because now we're not going to be skimming the surface. Instead of pulling from 18 inches of water We just want to pull from the top 8. The way we're going to do that is we're going to take a piece of liner and actually wrap it underneath and then up in front of this, creating a dam. So the water is forced to come up over the top of this. At the sides, when we do our rock work, we'll actually foam that in. This way it just seals everything up so that the water has no choice but to come over the top of the blocks, making our skimming action. We'll get that liner installed. Then we're going to backfill around the edges of the blocks with some cobble. Then we can go back into our pond and start doing our rock work, working our way back out of here. One of the biggest challenges we're going to have with this waterfall is this massive hill. But I stayed for 2 hours last night to help mitigate that. I have to get these gigantic boulders up onto that hillside to build that waterfall and do it safely. Some of these rocks are over 2 tons. This is a massive, massive rock, beautiful rock, but that's a heavy sucker right there. And we got lots of them. Between the waterfall and the outcroppings that we're gonna be putting in this hillside, we'll be bringing upwards of 60 to 70 tons of boulders onto this hillside. That's why I cut this road in. So I came up through the woods here and actually cut a road in that I can get access for not only the excavator, but for the skid steer to carry all those rocks up here. And it was a big cut. On this side, down the far end, I'm almost 5 feet into the hill as far as elevation goes. And then I had to build this out wide enough so we can get the machines up and stage some rocks here. And this is the site of what's going to be the waterfall. So it's gonna start up in here, working its way back down to the pond. Once I'm ready to start this, I'm gonna pull the tarp back and cut a big landing pad right here so I can sit my machine here, set all those rocks and dig from this side. Then I'll have to just leapfrog and move myself back up the hill so I can keep continuing on. From there, we're gonna do some outcropping out along this entire perimeter over to about this area here. This is where a couple decades of being a union heavy equipment operator really comes in handy. This is kind of scary, sketchy stuff sometimes when you're dealing with big hillsides and heavy boulders and excavators and stuff like that. You got to really be careful and know what your moves are so that you can actually accomplish this safely without tumbling down into the swimming pool that's at the bottom of the hill. Again, probably shouldn't have said that. But before we can get there, we got to finish this. Today's plan is to get this pond completely tightened up. We got a set of stairs that are gonna go down into the wetland area. Always gonna finish up the top edge of that stack stone, going right along the edge of the patio, keeping that curve really super clean so you're right at the edge of the pond. We got some small rock work that's gonna be chinking in along these edges here, and then we've got to finish our intake.
It's a sunny day, this is totally doable.
Over the next 3 or 4 videos, I'm gonna give you some behind the scenes stuff where you can see like what it's like to work in our operation, working with my sons, working with guys like Bowley, that you don't hear from very much and really get to know what we're all about.